are 2 weeks out from the NFL draft as we're recording this. I'm Dayne Young. That's Brent Rollins. We're from UGAsports.com. Throughout the football season and some during the offseason, we collaborate on a series called Film Don't Lie, where we go through Georgia games and kind of detail the things maybe you didn't see in the TV broadcast and kind of highlight things that we've seen along the way. We've been doing an NFL draft preview series, and there's a ton of Georgia Bulldogs in it. This is our wrap-up of that. And we'll probably be talking draft some more over the next 2 weeks, but we also wanted to reset where we are at. If you haven't been following this series, that's fine. You can go over to our YouTube channel, and you can see everything from Trayvon Walker, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt. Brent, I can go on and on and on.
Yeah, actually, I went back and listened a little bit to the Trayvon Walker one because we did it before the combine. So, like the hype machine obviously went to another level after what he did at the combine and showed. I mean, we talked about what the athletic traits are, but he took it to an absolute Myles Garrett-esque level. And now, he's probably not getting out. He's probably not going later than third. So, we kind of didn't really account for the insanely most of all insane's workouts that Walker had at the combine.
What you're seeing on our screen right now is our YouTube channel that you hear us talk about, Georgia Bulldogs football. If you're watching us on YouTube, this is probably where you've already gotten to. So if you want to scroll back in here, you'll see the latest one that we did was Zamir White. And then there's a lot of baseball coverage. There's our weekly podcast with Jim Donnan. There's the Georgia players in spring practice discussing what they've got going on. And here's our Jamari Salyer preview. So anyway, go back through here, see what you've missed, because we've been doing these in order, as Brent was saying, of our predicted how we think the guys are going to be drafted. So we thought that Trayvon Walker would be the first Georgia player off of the board. We still think that, and I think that's validated at this point.
Might even be first, and he might even be first. That's amazing.
There is a chance that he is the first player drafted. Here's where we're at, though. Let's just run this down. This is the order that we've done, and frankly, maybe we can discuss this after we talk about the guys we haven't, because there may be some shakeup here.
Yes, I think so.
What we've said, but we thought Trayvon Walker would be the first guy off the board. Then we had Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Lewis Seen, George Pickens, Quay Walker, James Cook, Jamari Salyer, Channing Tindall, Zamir White. That's where we're at. Now, a couple of those are really hard decisions. We kind of had a couple of tiers that we felt good about, but then there's some things that could go a lot of different directions.
There's basically three to me that when we look at that order, where it's like, okay, so the first is Nakobe, who obviously didn't do any workouts at the combine, and then we talked about the size being a possible issue, and that possibly pushing him down, and we showed some plays and things like that. But when you do that and then you don't work out, and he had the pec injury or something that he didn't work out at the pro day, so now they don't have any of those testing numbers to kind of check boxes, and you just consistently see his name. I've even seen his name, and we're going to go over one of the mocks today, falling out of the first round and being the first pick of the second round. So that's one. Deal. Yes, I disagree with that, but the other one is Tindall. I got Mel Kiper did his 2-round mock, which Mel's obviously been doing this for a long time, and maybe
the hair looks the same every year, Brent. It doesn't matter how long he's done it; his hair looks the same.
I wonder if he always had a product deal, like a marketing deal for some sort of product, but maybe not.
He and Coach K use the same guy.
But he had Tindall 45th or 46th, so ahead of a lot of guys. And then the third one is James Cook. Like I've seen various running back rankings throughout. Chris Sims is someone I listened to, and just to see, and he had him fourth as a back, and you maybe see him in the late second round, early third round, versus you look at somebody like Dane Brugler that does it for the Athletic. He had him in the fourth round with Zamir White going ahead of him, like 4 picks ahead of him. So those are the three to me that the order might get a little flipped around based upon how things go.
We'll get to the mocks here in a second, but I do want to get to the remaining Georgia guys that we have not discussed in this series. Now, if I would say these guys we think are either going undrafted or they're that highest case scenario is a fifth round.
6th, 7th round. Yeah. 6th, 7th round. Probably best cases of the 5th round. Yes, definitely best case.
So 5th to 7th. And then I think a couple of these guys are probably going to go undrafted for a variety of reasons. So we're going to start here with, he was a one-year player for Georgia, Darion Kendrick. A lot of his tape is going to be from Clemson, but he did have, there's not a lack of tape of going against elite wide receivers, and he did hold his own. But the thing that's going to scare people off is that 40 time.
Yes, and we saw that in the college football in the semifinal game against Michigan, 14 for Michigan. I forget his name. Absolutely just torched him down the sideline. And, I thought he would run in the mid to low 4.5s, like 4.55, 4.58, 4.59. But when you're pushing into the mid 4.7s like he did, like now you're talking about what I ran in high school. So, that's not an NFL caliber player. It's just not. And I think because of the 40 time, you might see a team that looks at him and says, all right, he has enough good tape. And he has I think his career grade all through with Clemson and the Georgia time, 83.5 career PFF grade, 82.2 coverage grade. And by the way, massively improved in one area as a tackler this year at Georgia. But unless somebody says, hey, 6th or 7th round, the guy who's played a lot of big-time football will take a chance and see and maybe just had a bad day, he's probably going undrafted.
That's what I would think, too. There's just so many guys that athletically, when you're looking at speed at a position that you have to have speed,
yes,
they're just going to, be better prospects. I think NFL teams think we can coach all the other stuff, but you can't be running for it. I can't make you 4.7 to 4.4.
No, and especially in the late rounds, and that's, you think about the late rounds, it's either, hey, I'm going to take someone who has supreme elite athletic traits that I don't really see maybe a lot of tape, or I'm just going to take a guy who I think is a good quality football player and then who also might help in special teams, and I don't know that he's that either.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say is that NFL rosters are much smaller than college rosters. So if you're investing 6th, 7th round pick, that means you're going to play special teams for us. At some point, you're going to be involved in that aspect of the game. If you can get someone that can run a little bit faster, maybe that's the difference in a kick return or a block or a gunner or something like that. Kendrick's a fine player. He played a lot of snaps at 2 really great programs. But I agree with you. I think he'll end up going undrafted. Next up, longtime starter for the Dogs on the offensive line, and we already talked about Jamari Salyer, who I think we're confident is going to be drafted maybe 2nd to 3rd round. Right beside him at Georgia was Justin Schaefer, offensive lineman, 330 pounds, 6'4". Played left guard for Georgia. A lot of good things on tape, some things that are not so good as well. But you only hear good, positive things about him as a guy. So I think he'll do well in those interviews. It's just, do you think he can project at the next level to be a guy that is worth keeping a spot in a roster?
And you think about the kid himself. Like at one point, it's like, all right, is he ever going to play football again? Because he had a neck injury at some point. So that was a scary time. And he comes in and he got one opportunity and took advantage of that one opportunity, and then you couldn't get him off the field for 2 years. And, that was one where the thing with him that's going to get him in trouble is the pass pro grade. Is if I'm going to take you in the late rounds, I need you to be able to pass protect more so than you can run block. Maybe I can teach you some run block, or we can scheme the run block things. Pass pro can't. We got to have that. And he's career 69.4 grade in pass pro. Now got better as he throughout his career, but it's one where I think athletically also that I think I will say, I think he does get drafted. I think he's a 6th round pick, probably.
He might be a guy though that he's going to have that internal debate of, do I want to get drafted? Because if you have the chance to go as an undrafted free agent and choose your spot, there's just going to be certain schemes that fit him better and the chance to make that roster. And you hope the team that would draft you, but that doesn't always work out that way.
Yep. And we initially, you think about maybe even going into the season, hey, he's our Solomon Kinley. It's just steady, always there, at least for the last 2 years. And Solomon got picked in the 3rd round. I don't see that for Schaefer, maybe 5th round at best with him.
Let's move on to a guy that I know you think is going to be an NFL commodity and a guy that will be in the league for a long time. We've talked about him a little bit off air, John Fitzpatrick. And I know the first name that pops up is Charlie Werner. Now, these are different kind of situations here. Charlie, smaller, gritty guy. John Fitzpatrick is a big dude.
And the picture, he kind of looks like Clark Kent in a way.
Not the greatest pass catcher, though he can do some of that too. This is going to be a blocker, special teams, kind of versatile in that way. But you think he'll be in the league for a while?
Yes, I do. And there's tight ends that have lasted into their 30s because of that, having that elite skill as a run blocker, and the way NFL offenses have evolved to use more two tight end sets, where one's a true sort of block, basically what he did at Georgia. And by the way, that's why he left early. Like he didn't come back for his senior year. He left as a early enrollee into the draft, and he probably looked at the situation. Maybe he probably even said, "Hey, Monk, am I going to get some more targets next year?" And they were like, "No, you're going to do what you've been doing." And he's like, "Okay, I'm just going to go get paid to do what I've been doing, which is block and be, by the way, be really, really good at it." 2 straight years of over 80, and one of the sort of top 5 highest grade in terms of highest grade run block tight ends in the FBS. Just a phenomenal blocker, and going to, I think, be drafted 100%, much like Warner, 6th round. Somebody like the Falcons, Tennessee, all these teams that, like San Francisco, that use a lot of 2 tight end sets. He's going to be picked, and he's going to play, I think.
Career receiving number, 17 catches for 200 yards and a touchdown, which is what, a week and a half for Brock Bowers?
Yes, and 3 drops. That's if he goes undrafted, it's somebody's looking at it and be like, all right, he just can't catch. There's issues with the sort of receiving part of the game.
He's listed at 6'7", 250. He plays a little heavier than 250, I think.
Oh, he's a big dude. He's one big dude. But no, I definitely think he gets drafted and thinks he makes a roster.
So that's John Fitzpatrick. 2 more in here. A guy that I think, look, I know it's never sexy for your team. If you're an NFL fan watching this and you're trying to check out some of these Georgia guys, never sexy to draft a punter. But if you were going to draft one, maybe it's the cat from San Diego State. But if you're going to draft another one, it's Jake Camarda.
Yes, and great hair first. I'm very jealous. But 4 straight years over 80 in terms of his grade, PFF punt grade. And I do a ton of special teams grading for PFF. Consistently just one of the best in the nation in terms of hang time, in terms of least percentage of punt returns that are actually returned. Like he is a field position game changer. And I think someone takes him 6th, 7th round, and he might be, you think about Georgia's going to break a record this year. They're probably going to break a record in the first 3 rounds in terms of number of guys drafted. He might be in the league the longest. Like he might be a guy who's in the league for, if he wants to be, for 15 years.
Yeah.
So, because he's that good and he's athletic. It's not like he's not an athlete. So but I think he is around and gets drafted and is just a great player in the league for a long time.
I haven't played my game like I should have been this whole time, but Jake Camarda kind of got some of that Carolina Panthers vibe to me.
I felt very Coltsy, which sadly.
Maybe that's because Rodrigo's there, though.
Yes, that's exactly why. I thought you might as well just team them up in the league as well. But for all the special teams, like I do NFL grading, I grade the graders in the NFL, and in terms of the names and the who's. I don't remember a lot of the names. I'm like, all right, who needs a punter? Who's going to be drafting a punter? Because I just look at numbers and look at the plays themselves.
And then there's one more guy that we're going to discuss. Obviously, he would have been a high-round pick, yet another defensive front 7 high-round pick for Georgia. But then rape allegations off the field. I think it came out 2 days ago that Adam Anderson was trying to get his trial dismissed. Not happening. So sounds like there's not going to be any movement in that over the next 2 weeks. I can't imagine any NFL team is willing to invest a draft pick into a situation like this where it's just, so many variables at play. You may never get this guy even in your team. So I think you have to hold out on all cases. But, and I'm not diminishing any of the, things that he's alleged to have done, whatever. On the football field, if that gets behind him, if he's proven not guilty, if, those are big ifs, and
Right.
really they don't matter in the course of things, but we are a football show. Adam Anderson's a really, 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 really good football player, and he would have been a first-round pick had this not happened.
At worst, he's a top 40 pick, probably. And now what's interesting, if you think about him, and obviously we're going to talk strictly about football because we can't control the other stuff, but he's going to be in a situation like La'el Collins was with the Cowboys, where stuff came out, wasn't drafted, and then it went away, and then he's able to sign as a free agent. But if you give his production to Trayvon Walker is the slam dunk number one pick. He's Jadeveon Clowney looked at, in terms of the prospect-ish because of the production part. This guy was insanely productive, 90.1 pass rush grade in his career. And, he was mainly a third down guy for Georgia and was starting to play a little more that last season, but obviously cut short. So based on all that stuff, he's probably, the likelihood of him being drafted is slim and none. So, it's one of those where hope everything works out for the kid and everything is, either just
it's
comes
all the
to a
stuff that we
conclusion.
said when this came out, that this is a future for multiple people involved in the situation. And for him, he missed out on the national championship run. It's dramatically going to impact his NFL status, his draft thing. None of that matters in comparison if he did what is alleged to have been
exactly
done. That's not on us to figure out.
No.
If it gets exonerated and it turns out that the charges are dropped or as if they were never there. And I mean, Deshaun Watson just got paid a lot of money too. So future may not be over. It also may be over. So
yes, and that's probably the likelihood that we haven't mentioned is that he never plays football again.
Yeah. All right. So it's worth talking about in the sense that that would have been you talk about Georgia setting records in the draft for a number of people. That would have been a number for sure. Like you said, top 40 pick. I think he was on pace to be a late first-round pick.
Yes, I would agree. I would 100% agree. Totality, by the way, that's how many players that we just looked at. I think it's 15. It's 14. It's 14 at least.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Anderson would have been 16. So there you go.
So, the record coming into this year was 9. And that was last year.
Georgia's going to have that by the third round?
I mean, we've said this before, but I think there's going to be 10 guys taken in the first 3 rounds. And if you look at 2 sort of recent mocks, we've already kind of brought them up a little bit. But Dayne Brugler at The Athletic does a really good job. Did a 7-round mock. And in his 7-round mock, he had 14 Bulldogs getting drafted. He had Trayvon at 2 with Detroit, Davis at 15, Wyatt at 27. He was the one that had Nakobe in the first pick of the second round. And then the second pick of the second round, he had Lewisine going. So Detroit would be, in his mock, would be Trayvon and Cine in the second round. Pickens at 37. So 6 guys in the first 37 picks. Quay at 51, Sawyer 72nd, Tyndall 80th, Zeus at 110, Cook at 112, and then Camarda, Fitzpatrick, and Schaefer in the 6th round. 14 guys drafted. I think that's, in terms of the people and the numbers, I think that's pretty spot on.
And I did see that it's 3 Georgia players that will be attending the draft live in Las Vegas.
Which, by the way,
Walker, not one of them.
No, and Nakobe Dean was.
Yes.
So he must feel. I saw that list at baseball practice tonight, and
I thought Wyatt, Nakobe Dean, and
Jordan Davis. Yeah, but Nakobe being on there and going, which he wasn't the most interesting name on there. The most interesting name on that list was Corral to me. So.
But see, I've told you I thought Corral's the best quarterback in the draft, and the more mocks that I'm seeing, I think that you're going to see a higher run on quarterbacks than what has been led on.
But I posted one on Twitter earlier yesterday or today or something like that. I think I had 4 in the first round. I think there's going to be 4 of them taken in the first round.
And I don't think there should be. I think this is teams reaching just because of the position.
Well, you have to take a shot. There's only
2 worth taking a shot on, in my opinion. Now, Coach Donnan rags on me for being a fake NFL GM over here. But, if you're taking flyers, you got to go with Corral and Willis just for the athletic skills.
Yes.
Someone's going to take Pickett. Someone's going to take Howell.
I think Ritter is also in that category. And, Pickett for me, I see him being picked 6 by Carolina. Because if I'm Carolina and I'm that coach, it's one of those, if they don't win and start progressing, they're getting fired.
Are you doing the Temple thing?
Not that, not even that. I'm taking the guy who's older than Stetson. Stetson's the same age. They're the oldest guy in the draft almost.
I suppose I should explain that. Matt Rule, when he was Temple's head coach, Kenny Pickett had committed to play for him there.
Right.
Matt Rule then leaves and goes to Baylor.
Right.
And Kenny Pickett ends
up at Pitt.
Did you mention Stetson Bennett? Did you see what I tweeted out the other day? My Stetson Bennett stat?
I did not. Maybe I did. Maybe
it's not really a stat. It's more of a fact. Stetson Bennett and Lamar Jackson, both born in 1997.
Yes, I think I know we've at least talked about that at some point. Maybe not necessarily on a podcast, but yes.
Lamar Jackson.
He might be. Yeah, and Stetson might be older than double-digit quarterbacks that start in the league day one.
Hey, that's an advantage for Georgia.
Yeah, and who knows what the draft takes, but I do think the biggest picture of all this, when you look at the totality of what we've done reviewing all these players, and then what's going to happen where you're going to have 3, maybe you're going to have a top 5 pick, you're going to have at least probably 3, maybe 4. And I think teams are going to, when in doubt, they're going to go with the Georgia guy who's the freakiest of athlete and has shown on the quality tape. I think you could end up as much as 7 first-round picks. If Kansas City and Green Bay now having 2 picks at the end of the first round, does Pickens slide into one of those spots?
I think Pickens
and get you the 7th guy
for first round, in my opinion. Now, I base some of that on Jim Donnan saying on our show this week that he's been getting more calls about George Pickens than any Georgia player in this draft and really in any recent history. To me, the one that if they sneak up there, does someone take Lewis Cine in that 28 to 32 range? Because it's possible.
I think he's there.
Yeah,
I think he's there. In the mock that I posted earlier today, I had Quay at 21 to New England.
Yeah.
Because I think he fits that sort of Dante Hightower mold for them, the versatility to be able to do a lot of different things with.
My personal opinion,
who knows?
That's I'm not going against your mock. I could totally see it happen. I think it's high for Quay. I don't think that would yield to be a good draft pick for our franchise.
One that I do think that the Nakobe Dean sort of pushing him down and is 2 parts. One, it's size, but it's also positional value. The linebacker position in the NFL now, it's just you can find guys, and the surplus value is later in the draft for that position. But to me, as when you think about just the dynamics of football and the leadership part, the ancillary characteristics, the brains, all the traits that aren't necessarily physical that can't be measured with Nakobe Dean, I think that stuff still matters, even in the NFL. And I see a team like Philadelphia with their 2nd first-round pick taking him at 19.
What do you think of the Philadelphia and New Orleans trade? Because I texted you right when it happened because I found it to be very interesting. It was my analysis real fast. I asked you a question really just to give my opinion, apparently. New Orleans is making a bet that it's going to be one of the best 10 teams in the league this year, and then it's going to be at minimum an equal trade at that standpoint, considering they gave up a first-round pick next year.
Yeah, and I think they're betting that they are 2 players away from being really, really good and competing in the NFC, or they're gathering assets to move up to pick a QB. It's one of those 2 things, and we're going to get to see it play out in 2 weeks from tonight, probably right around this time. By the way, the Falcons will probably be on the clock right around this time.
You're going to be there
in 2 weeks. Yes, I will be in Las Vegas for the draft. So
let's do this. We have a couple more topics I want to hit on, but I also don't want this to get too lengthy either. If we were going to reorder what we did in terms of our anticipated Georgia Bulldog draft order, we both agree Trayvon Walker is the first dog off the board.
Yes.
We had Nakobe Dean second, and if you see how things are going, you have to think that the next two are Davis and Wyatt, right?
And I think Davis and Wyatt are the two that definitively look like they're going to be in those team. I think Wyatt doesn't get past 19. Actually, the one that I did, I had Wyatt at 15 with the Eagles and then Nakobe at 19. But I don't think Wyatt gets past 19 with Philly. He's too good of a scheme fit for what they do. And then I think Jordan Davis is in those middle teens as well.
Everybody that I've seen has Jordan Davis to the Chargers. Like, that seems like a match made in heaven.
Right.
So are you
so
thinking
those two probably go before Nakobe? I do think that, yes.
All right, so we'll go Trayvon Walker, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, then Nakobe Dean? Or are you thinking Quay Walker jumps?
No, I do think Nakobe is the fourth one. And he's either that latter part of the first round or, in the 20s, something like that. Another Scene is another one I think would probably be the next one.
Okay.
Scene and Pickens. Just because, like we talked about, you got the Packers and the Chiefs now with 2 first-round picks with the receiver who just traded away receivers to get those picks. So
then Quay Walker would be the next one.
Yes, I do think it's those 4 or 5, those 6 guys, and then Quay.
Okay.
But by the way, I do think so. That's 4, 5, 6, 7. I think those 7 guys are in the top 40. I don't think any of them get past 40.
So then you're probably looking. We had Cook, Salyer, Tyndall, White. I would actually probably go Tyndall ahead of all of those.
I think that's a possibility for teams that are. But there's also what's interesting about this draft class is you've got a lot of sort of day 2 type linebackers that also have elite athletic traits like Channing Tyndall, but who have also played a lot more football. The kid from Wyoming, Muma, the kid from Wyoming, the FCS kid was like the freakiest athlete in terms of the relative athletic score from the linebacker position that they've ever had. Montana State or something like that. Troy Anderson, the Chenal kid from Wisconsin. So you've got a lot of linebackers that might push him a little further down and those guys are similar speed characteristics as Tyndall, but bigger. So that's, I think, one that might push him down a little bit.
Well, and look, we can do it. We'll probably stop this little exercise here because we can prognosticate all of this. If a few teams do some crazy things, then guys get pushed down, guys get pulled up. Really, the most of what you can project is first round and go from there.
Yes. By the way, all of it, does it really matter for Georgia if they go 47th or 65th? No. These guys on TV, they're all going to be there. They're all going to be talking about them. Oh, another Georgia player. And it's literally going to be a 3-day infomercial that every great football player in the country in high school should come to the University of Georgia because look what we can do.
Surely Kirby Smart will be there. I'd have to think he has to be.
I would bet he is there for I think that maybe even been a note, a little insider note on our board earlier today that he will be. I think he will be there at least for the first round.
I've been busy and didn't read the Dogman as much as I should have.
I think. Don't hope. Roddy, if you're listening, you can correct me there.
I'm excited about the draft. I think it'll be good. Georgia's going to have a lot of talent. Like I said, the infomercial will be there. I'll be curious to see who fits in where. I've had a lot of fun doing this series. This is our wrap on that. But before we wrap this particular show, you are a West Virginia native, which, as far as I'm concerned, the sport of football might as well have started and disseminated from there because Nick Saban's from there. And, I mean, you can go
Jimbo Fisher.
Jimbo's from there.
Yep.
It's like all the best football minds have come from West Virginia in recent years.
I mean, I can't disagree.
That's because of where you're from. I'm from Middle South Georgia, so maybe I should link up with Kirby and say, hey, Bainbridge ain't that far from East Dublin, my friend.
Yes.
JT Daniels transferring from Georgia to West Virginia, which when you and I were texting about it, you said, I'm trying to figure out how to process. And you know me, so you're trying to help me figure out the joke in this. And the best that I can come up with is I think a more normal trek for a person his age going through life is Morgantown, West Virginia, Athens, Georgia, Los Angeles, California, and he's doing it in the reverse direction.
Yeah, and even like me being from West Virginia, now in and around Athens. By the way, I'm not moving to California unless someone adds like a zero to my salary. So
You
I'm
need
not
a couple zeros to afford some of that.
Yeah, I'm not completing the reverse JT, but at least for West Virginia, from a football perspective, he's going to a place where he has a relationship with the OC. Once Graham Harrell was hired, the former OC at USC, once he was hired at West Virginia, which, by the way, West Virginia's offense has been bad. The entirety of Neil Brown's tenure there, their offense has just been bad. And now
which is surprising. I mean, Neil's a good offensive coach. He's been good at Kentucky. He's been good at Troy. It has not worked.
No, just hasn't worked. And even in the Big 12, by the way, that's what's even more amazing, is that you're in the Big 12 and you're not good offensively. So for him, he goes to a situation where I think he goes in, he'll know the system at least, or at least have to refresh himself, and he'll do it quickly because he's a hyper intelligent kid, and he's a graduate student, and he'll basically be a semi-professional football player and taking graduate classes, minimal, kind of like Joe Burrow that last year, where he was in essence a pro football player.
Oh yeah, he's a renegade. He's hopping in for 6 to 7 months, hoping to get that draft stock to where he can be something in the pros, and we'll see.
Yep, and he's a big improvement over Jarrett Dayne, who is playing somewhere else again for like the 6th season next year. I forget where, Western Kentucky maybe. But if he can stay on the field, that's the question. Can he stay on the field? Because he's now gone 3 years and started 8 games in 3 years, and all of which, for the most part, initially, because if he doesn't get hurt, Stetson doesn't exist, possibly. So who knows?
And then even if you go back to look at USC, he wasn't there to be able to compete with Slovis for the starting job after the ACL injury. He was already moving on to Georgia.
Game one.
And a lot of that was around COVID as well, so that complicated some things even more. And game one, as you're saying, it is the return of practice at USC. For West Virginia, you have JT Daniels. For Pitt, replacing Kenny Pickett, is Keaton Slovis. So what I was more interested, because I think when you think of college football rivalries, obviously you think of the Iron Bowl, you think of the Egg Bowl, you think of Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Florida. I know the backyard brawl is a big, big deal.
And hasn't been played in a while.
But I haven't.
They're bringing it back.
So what does that game mean to the area where you grew up?
Oh, it's a big deal. It's obviously it's much like, I will say though, it's much like, well, it's probably more Auburn, Alabama, in a way, if you want to compare it to something that's down here. But there's I think 65 miles or 70 miles or something like that to separate the campuses. The biggest thing for me, and it was back and forth. Some teams would, it was kind of even for a while, but the heartbreaking loss and the defeat that Pitt handed West Virginia in 2007.
That was going to be for a national championship appearance.
Correct. If they don't botch that game, and Rich Rod completely froze in that game, and Pat White, they played completely different than they ever had. You could tell they were 20-point favorites or something like that at home to go play in the national championship. Except no, we're going to lose that game and let Matt Flynn get a national championship.
Yeah, Dave Wannstedt handed Les Miles a national championship with Matt Flynn.
Yep.
What a weird sentence.
Like the ultimate of gut punch there, because that was the team, Pat White, Steve Slayton. Georgia fans obviously know that combo. So
there's something about Pitt, though. If you remember a couple of years ago with Mark Richt at Miami, the Hurricanes were working on a great season, had beaten Notre Dame, go up there and have college football playoff aspirations, and then get whipped by Pitt.
Yes. It's a great rivalry. It's because you have, and the reason I think it makes it a great rivalry, in addition to the closeness, is that you think about West Virginia as a school. If there are 5 D1 football commits in a single year, think about, by the way, Georgia gets, how many 5 stars are in the state of Georgia from a recruiting perspective. And it's like, hey, lock up Georgia. If we just lock up Georgia. In West Virginia, that just doesn't exist. There are 2, 3 at most D1 commits in the entire state from a recruiting standpoint. So where does West Virginia have to recruit? They have to go to Ohio and get people from Ohio, and they have to go to Western PA. And so they're pulling kids from that area and who then go play against Pitt, that sort of thing. You have to go to Florida. They have to go to Georgia. They have to go to the South. So it's a great rivalry. It's going to be interesting to see. And I hope, and by the way, I hope JT has all kinds of success, because that means then West Virginia's a lot better and having a lot more success. And I'm happy, and it makes my dad happy, who watches every week.
And you'll never know how last season would have turned out if JT Daniels never gets injured. Maybe it's exactly like it would. Like maybe Georgia still wins the national title. The offense was humming with him. It hummed without him. So, it's really tough to say in that situation. When he played at Georgia, he was very successful. I do think that Georgia's offense shifted in having a mobile quarterback, that the offensive line, some pressure was taken off of it, and being able to move around the pocket with Stetson Bennett was helpful. And I think that JT Daniels' third recruitment, leaving Georgia and then going to the portal, his options being West Virginia, Oregon State, Missouri, I don't think that's an indictment on JT Daniels as a quarterback per se, because all the things I've been told is that he's a football genius. Like he knows how to play the game. Teammates love him. You saw that on the Instagram post from his departure. I think it's an indictment of saying you can't move around very well. We can't trust you're going to be on the field and not take bad hits. Like the game has changed where a quarterback has to be able to at least extend plays for a few seconds, preferably be able to take off and run. And JT Daniels really can't do either.
And the beautiful part for him is at least the knee part. The knee, he's now 2 years out from that. That shouldn't be an issue. And he's should be as mobile as he's ever been going to West Virginia. But it's just not his game. But I will say if he plays, if he's able to stay on the field, he's going to play solid. He's going to be way more accurate than Jarrett Doege, way more accurate. And he's going to get the opportunity to chuck it. They're going to be a lot. The ball's going to be in the air a lot, and he's going to get his opportunity to show and showcase that, hey, I can be an NFL guy.
You and I did a JT Daniels kind of recap at USC when he came to Georgia. And when we look back at the tape, we both said the arm is tremendous, but he is reckless in terms of just kind of throwing the ball out where it could be a turnover. And he threw a lot of interceptions as a freshman. It should have been way more because there were a lot of things that were dropped or some kind of missed assignments, whatever. He cut down on that at Georgia. I mean, there were still some of those, but definitely not as many as freshman year there. So I would think that you start looking around at quarterbacks that may be in the draft next year, he's going to get drafted somewhere. As long as he plays on the field this year, doesn't get hurt.
The health part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I think he's every bit as good as a Carson Strong, and he's probably going to go third, fourth round in this draft.
Potentially.
So, I mean.
Yeah, potentially. But, like you said, the great throws and then the also putting the ball in harm's way in his career, the totality of his career, if you include USC, 36 big-time throws, 37 turnover-worthy plays. For every great throw, there's one really bad one. In half the games he's played, he's thrown an interception.
Well, so, that's the difference in the NFL right now, right? Like every quarterback that gets to the NFL, they can make a touchdown throw. It's the ones that mitigate the turnovers that hang out for 10 years.
Yep. But, like I said, in the end, I hope he does.
He gets to hang out as long as he wants to.
Because he's fun. But in the end, like I said, I hope he does awesome. Because then that means West Virginia is good. And and I enjoy watching it. So we'll see.
He'll go up against some good competition. I know the defenses or whatever, like there's the reputation that in that conference, you just score a ton of points. He's going to see a lot of good corners going against his wide receivers too.
But he doesn't have George Pickens, unfortunately.
He doesn't have a George Pickens. He doesn't have a Jermaine Burton. He does. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Probably the best 7 receivers at Georgia.
Yeah.
I did see some West Virginia person say, "Oh, we traded Tyke Smith for JT Daniels."
That's a good joke.
I'll take that.
And a coach. Yes, very true. Very
Well,
true.
we'll chat some more NFL draft here over the course of the next 2 weeks. We'll probably pop on sometime next week and kind of set the table one more time. And then, depending on how hard you want to work in Vegas or, what else.
If I can get like a cool background or get some interesting interviews, you never know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But at the same time, you need to enjoy Vegas. So we'll see what could potentially happen out that way. It's going to be a fun time for Georgia fans to see what's going on there. G-Day this weekend, anything you're looking for?
I put this note on the event earlier this week. There is one player to me that people should watch, and that is Ernest Green, true freshman from California, which, by the way, so that would be 3 straight years where you're getting a guy who's helping you and has potential to be really good from California. But he, based on everything that I know, dude is the real deal. And I put on the event that I think he will at some point start a game this season for Georgia. Now that's, there's injuries happen. You need him for one game or who knows what, or just by the end of the year, he's just better. So
G-Day is fun for the kind of like middle of the roster guys because they're trying, like that's their time in the sun. And at some point they're all told, don't go 100%, like don't get anybody injured. There's going to be somebody out there that says, I don't care. I want to play. I'm going to show you I want to play. And if you don't play me, then, I can go somewhere else eventually too. Like that's going to happen in these games.
Well, and and we said, what do you remember from last year's G-Day game? There's one thing, probably.
Bowers.
Darnell. Darnell with the Dan, dunking on Dan Jackson.
I do remember Amarius Mims getting a pass and, not taking it to the end zone. I remember that too.
But it's, hey, just nobody get hurt. The ball's going to be thrown around a lot. It's not going to be, they're not going to, they're already beat up as it is. So survive, have fun, see these young guys, let the young guys, I think I heard Kirby talk about young guys getting the opportunity on a big environment, in a big stadium and getting used to that because game one is, because there's going to be a lot of these guys who are early enrollees and then also coming in the summer that are going to be on the field.
Yeah,
and
a lot.
Special teams definitively, but also, guys who are second in rotation or, third in a rotation, especially along the D line, Michael Williams and Marvin Jones Jr. Like those two guys, they're probably going to play a lot or at least some, and you need to get them ready to go for game one.
I'm going to give you 2 effort guys. I've heard their names a lot this spring. I think that, G-Day is very much scripted, and so you're not going to see everything you want to see. This is not a normal scrimmage that they would have behind closed doors. It is a TV show, and they're going to show you what they want you to see. But just from the effort standpoint and guys that are kind of in that middle tier and trying to earn their playing time, so to speak, and 2 guys that I've heard have kind of done everything right in the spring. Jackson Meeks at wide receiver is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll see a lot of receivers kind of take it easy. I don't think he'll be one because it's a crowded position group and he's got to, kind of stake his claim that maybe some of these true freshmen are not going to take his shine. And the other is Chaz Chambliss, just because I don't know if he is capable of slowing down.
Same.
I think he has one speed.
5th gear.
Yeah.
All the time.
Go. And I've been told that in the weight room that he's a monster there. And, if you're playing football, I don't know if he can stop from going that fast. So we'll see what happens. G-Day is going to be fun. It's at least another time for fans to get and hang out in Sanford Stadium at a much more affordable price.
$5, right?
$5 for a ticket. It does go to a charity. I think the players, at least they say they get to choose where it goes to. I don't know exactly that. Baseball's playing in Texas A&M. If people want to hang out there, hear my friend Logan Booker on the PA. Over there. So, Brent, we'll do some more NFL draft stuff. We went on for 45 minutes tonight, which is an eternity, but also it went by quick. So thanks, everybody, for joining us and supporting us. Hey, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're still hanging out with us, if you haven't already done that, because we're about to be the biggest Georgia Bulldogs YouTube channel. And by about to, we're like right there. So if you kind of nudge us over the edge a little bit, we get to do more cool things.
Little nudge. Little nudge.
This is our we made up so much ground back in the fall. and you wait till this fall because we're doing.
And then it's fifth gear. And then it's fifth gear. We're
then we're doing Chambliss. Right now we're in G-Day. We're gonna hit Chambliss shortly. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Subscribe to this channel. We'll see y'all next time. And Brent, thanks for doing this series on NFL draft stuff. This is a wrap on this series, but we'll be doing just a couple more hits over the next 2 weeks as we prepare for the NFL draft. Everybody, have a good night.